What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show. We discuss everything going on here in our country that you need to know about here on a daily basis. And we got some big news coming out here from this next package called the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. We actually got a really big report from the Congressional Budget Office, and we actually got some big news about gas prices here as well. Multiple different things here for you guys in this video. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, make sure to click the subscribe button down below. It's completely free to do so, so you don't miss out on new videos. The Congressional Budget Office is not Democrat. They're not Republican. They're just workers that have been at the government for decades. And they're basically just math geeks, and they basically go through and do the math on budget proposals. And again, they're not partisan, and they've been there for years and years and years. Many of these people have been working there for 20 years and stuff, and they do the math on these bills. Okay, so when Democrats, Republicans, bipartisan bills come through, they go to the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, and the CBO gives their score, their math score. Some of these are projections because they're projected out into the future on what they think is going to best happen. Okay, so just to be uh, upfront and clear about that, because sometimes they're close, sometimes they're not close. You know, it is what it is. But here's what this report comes out to say. Yeah, this Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 could save nearly $2 trillion over 20 years, according to this new analysis. Here's the details. The Democrats' Inflation Reduction Act would cut federal budget deficits by more than $100 billion through 2031, according to an analysis published Wednesday by the Congressional Budget Office. When projected revenue increases from enhanced Internal Revenue Service enforcements are factored in, the deficit savings totals more than $300 billion. And a new report by the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget finds that the longer term savings would be far higher, totaling $1.9 trillion over 2 decades. Even if expanded Affordable Care Act subsidies, which is basically if you're low income, you can get health care for free or reduced cost, slated to be extended for 3 years in the new bill, are eventually made permanent, the bill would still reduce deficits by $1.1 trillion over 20 years, they say. Quote, there are several reasons why net deficit reduction in the IRA is much larger over the next 2 decades on a per year basis than in the first 9 years alone, they explain. First, much of the prescription drug savings doesn't begin to materialize until 2027, when negotiated drug pricing first takes effect and the current law hiatus on the rebate rule ends. Second, those prescription drug savings will grow rapidly over time as Medicare is able to negotiate the price of more and more prescription drugs. They're able to negotiate 20 per year, and that kind of continues to grow. Third, much of the energy and climate spending represents a one-time investment, and they will be fully spent by late this decade. And fourth, interest savings accumulate and compound over time, particularly as rates are projected to rise. The 430 prescription drug bill pricing reduction bill, energy and tax bill, the Democrats hope to fast track through the Senate would decrease the federal deficit, the federal debt, by a net of $101 billion over the next decade. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office has now released. The CBO forecast is only about 1/3 of the $300 billion in deficit reduction predicted by the Senate, The other $200 billion comes from the IRS enforcement due to congressional guidelines. So a couple different things here. We'll start with the IRS. So they're going to hire tens of thousands of more IRS agents. This is a double-edged sword. Okay, one, they're going to with hiring more agents is they're going to do more audits. So unless you get audited, this is a good thing. Okay, so if you get audited, then it might not be a good thing. Okay, but if you don't get audited, it will be a good thing if you don't get audited. If you're not one of the people that get audited, it's a good thing because number one, have you tried to call the IRS anytime soon, anytime lately? It's an absolute nightmare. It's literally an absolute nightmare. You can wait on hold for an hour and talk to nobody. You could wait on hold for hours and talk to nobody. And then you can wait on hold for an hour and then the system can hang up on you. You can call and wait on hold for minutes or hours, and then the system can say, sorry, we're too busy. Please try again later. The IRS literally does not have enough people to answer calls. Imagine any other business like that, where if you called up a business and they said, sorry, we just can't answer your call. Day after day after day after day. I've seen a lot of comments from people like this in the comment section. Number two, I have seen a ton of comments from people saying they've been waiting on their tax returns for months, their refunds for months and months and months. Again, this is because of a shortage of people. If you're waiting on $500, $1,000, $2,000, several $1,000s, guess what? That's because of a shortage of workers. So again, the only way to solve those problems and all of these are because of shortages of workers. Okay, the IRS has not really added a plethora of workers in years. In years, in fact, during all of Trump's presidency, they cut down workers, and really, this is an ideology thing because Republicans wanted to cut the IRS staff because they don't want to be audited. I get the theory. You can put me on either side of the fence. The problem here is that if you don't personally get audited, it's a bad thing to have less workers there because you end up waiting. I mean, my mom waited months for her IRS refund. Months. It was like six. She just got it here recently. It literally takes forever, for lack of a better term. I mean, when you're waiting 6 months, a year for your refund, it's not a good thing. I mean, people need that money to survive, to pay their rent, buy food. Okay. And heaven forbid if you have even a small clerical error on your refund or your tax return. Of course, I know nobody ever thinks they have an error on their taxes, but it's an error because you don't know it's an error. If you knew it was an error, you wouldn't do it. But if you just mark one box wrong, you put one number wrong, something's wrong, again, you don't do it on purpose. It's an accident. But if you do one thing wrong on your tax return, that could set you back another 6 months or a year. I've seen comments. Let me know down below in the comments how long, if you waited an extended period of time for your tax return. Let me know in the comment section. I've seen people say, I've waited 6 months, I waited 3 months, I waited 9 months, I waited over a year for your refund money. I've seen people that are still waiting. All this is because they don't have enough people working there, guys. And not that I'm a fan of the IRS. I mean, trust me, the IRS doesn't have any fans. I don't think anybody is a fan of the IRS, right? It's just not a fan. Nobody's a fan of the IRS unless they are giving you money, which they typically the IRS gives more people money than they take. I don't know, maybe. I don't know. But if they're giving you refund money, if they're giving you stimulus checks, if they're giving you any type of, if you need to call them, they have to have people to work there. If they don't hire, the other problem with this is going to give them funding to hire people. The other problem is the amount of money that they had to hire people. They were hiring people at subpar rates. This will be able to hire. So the problem is like if you needed a degree, an accounting degree or something, nobody wanted to go work at the IRS because they were hiring people at subpar rates. So if they were hiring people, and I'll just throw random numbers out here, 40,000, okay? And all the other people with the accounting degrees were being hired at 50, 60, and 70,000. Why would you go work the IRS if it's paying way less? And again, I'm just throwing random numbers out there. These aren't real numbers. It's just for an example here. So they were having a real hard time hiring people because the rates were just way too low. It's just common sense. So this is kind of the problem here. Okay. So that's really number one of this. Number two here, US would gain power to negotiate prescription drug prices under the, I like how it's being called the Manchin-Schumer bill, but this Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. This is going to be a really good thing for the entire country, whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, Realist, red, white, blue, whatever, right? This is going to be a really good thing for Americans, all of the above, right? Several different reasons why here. Number one, again, it's not going to all kick in here immediately. They're going to be able to negotiate like 20 prescriptions per year. Going forward, it's gonna extrapolate. It's going to kick in for more and more and more, and eventually we're going to have hundreds of drugs that are going to be covered underneath this. Okay, right now we're not able to negotiate the cost of anything. These pharmaceutical companies are just able to charge us whatever they want, and right now it's way more money than every other country in the world. Okay, so right now on average we're charged 2.5 times more for prescription drugs than any other country in the world. So we pay more than double, and in most cases, just on average, it's for the exact same prescription. So a company like Pfizer makes a prescription a drug, and they sell it in the other countries, the exact same prescription, the exact same company. They just sell it for way less in other countries than they sell it to for us. Exact same company, exact same prescription, same brand name, everything. We're just being taken advantage of. This needs to stop. This is one step towards doing it. Okay. So we're going to be able to negotiate. Just pretty much that simple. Okay. This is going to save us hundreds of billions of dollars on a government level. This is going to save us hundreds of billions of dollars on a American people level. Okay. So government's going to save hundreds of billions of dollars. That's going to lower prices. It's going to lower prices for Medicare. So eventually Medicare premiums are going to start to come down. Okay. Those monthly premiums you pay. Remember that like last year, the Alduhelm prescription was a major cost of the rise in premiums. That one prescription, remember that? Okay. One prescription had to do with a major rise in the cost of that. Imagine when they can start to negotiate the prescriptions for dozens of these things. And then over the course of the next several years, hundreds of these things. Can you see now how premiums are going to start to be less? Now you got to think of this in terms of, don't necessarily, because I don't want to get people, think about this realistically. Think about this as a realist, okay? That's how we got to think about things here. Don't necessarily think that all of our costs are going to go down, okay? Because remember, inflation always tends to go up here a little bit over time. But what this means is that over time, we're not going to be paying as much as we would have been. And I know that's hard to say, oh, well, we would have been paying $500 and now we're paying $400 or $300. It's because it's hard to know what we would have been paying, right, in the future. But in general, we're going to be paying less. It's just the force of nature here. Okay. So, like last year we had that $21 increase for Medicare Part B. In general, we're going to be having lesser increases. And again, I know it's almost impossible to tell how much we're going to be saving, but we're going to be negotiating these prices down. And it's a really good thing for America. And it's not just for Medicare. It's going to be for private healthcare as well. It's going to be for people that are just buying medicine. And it's going to help lower the cost of healthcare for private insurers, for people that work at regular jobs, and you pay part of your paycheck to healthcare as well. Because remember, part of your monthly premiums go towards just paying for healthcare. Okay. Those monthly premiums have your prescriptions built into that. Even if you don't use any prescriptions, you're paying for it because the healthcare providers know, just like that Medicare Part B, that monthly premium was built into there. Just that one prescription alone, even if you don't take Alduhelm, which very few people do, it's an Alzheimer's drug, the $21 increase for tens of millions of people was built into that. Okay. So as we're able to lower the cost of prescriptions for the entire country, the cost of medicine, the cost of healthcare, the cost of all healthcare is going to start to come down, or at least the increases of all the healthcare is going to start to come down. We've seen healthcare, just like we've seen college, rise exponentially more than the cost of like everything else. If you think about like the cost of like inflation is really bad right now, but the cost of healthcare and the cost of college are two things that have gone exponentially higher than everything else in the world. Those are two of like the worst things. I'm trying to really think of what are two things or what would be worse than those two things. Those are like two of the things that really stand out. The cost of college, the cost of healthcare are two of the absolute worst things that have been enormous. I know that the it was last year, I think, our healthcare costs went up 21%. 21%. And for us, that was about $210 a month because we pay a little bit over $1,000 a month for our family of three, and we have a $5,000 deductible per person, or $10,000 max for the family. So that means we're paying $1,000 a month, and the insurance company doesn't even pay anything until we pay $5,000 each, or $10,000 maximum as a family. This is how expensive like private health insurance is. Now, if we worked like for a company, then the company would pay like half of that, and they take half out of your paycheck. Or like if you're on Medicare, Medicare, you pay those monthly premiums. So and if you're paying $121 a month, or I'm sorry, $170 a month, that's like $2,000 a year that you're paying. So that's a lot of money. $170 a month, just for the premiums. Yeah. So healthcare is insane. Healthcare is insane, and this will help bring down a lot of costs for Americans going forward. So, and really, this is something that should have been done a long time ago. And of course, we're not going to get any Republicans that vote for this, which is it should. This is the type of stuff that should get Republicans to vote for it. They're not going to. They're going to use the green climate part of it or whatever for to not vote for it or whatever. But it's neither here nor there. Um, but and it's going to reduce the deficit, which is good. And Republicans are all about the deficit, the deficit, the deficit. Former President Donald Trump, in his campaigning, said he was going to reduce the deficit. He actually raised the deficit by $8 trillion. So this is kind of where things get very political. But we're going to go into this next election, and we're gonna see where things end up after the election. So I don't know. You can let me know your thoughts on this bill. We're going to see what comes of it. They're going to go through the amendment process. Senator Bernie Sanders, who's, he's been kind of critical of this bill. He thinks there needs to be a lot more in it for Americans. The problem with that is that it's hard to get more in it for Americans because they need the votes. No Republicans will vote for it. And to raise the price of the bill, you need to get Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema's vote. And Joe Manchin doesn't want to have the bill be more than $1 trillion. So that's where you kind of run into the difficulties of this, you know. And Senator Kirsten Sinema, I have never been a fan of Kirsten Sinema. She doesn't seem like a person that's for the people. She seems like a person that's for corporations and large corporate donors and stuff like that. You can let me know your thoughts on this, but I just have never been a fan of Kirsten Sinema. She just does not seem like a genuine for the people type of person. And again, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, I'm just a realist. Kirsten Sinema just does not seem like a person that is there. She doesn't seem like a person that is trying to help people. She seems like she's there for her donors. She's there to help corporations and stuff like that. She doesn't seem like she's, her last thing was the corporate loophole, the carried interest loophole was the thing she was negotiating on. She wasn't negotiating on anything for the people. She was negotiating on carried interest loopholes. So she wasn't negotiating on anything that would help out the average everyday family or anything along those lines, you know. So yeah, this is kind of one of the problems we have here in Congress right now. And you know, Republicans are voting no on almost everything. So I get that we're coming into an election here, and they're just kind of standoffish because Democrats control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Um, whether the House and Senate change here after this election will be very interesting because they're both up for grabs. So yeah, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen with this election? So I'll keep you up to date here. This bill is going to it's going to go through an amendment process. They're going to have several amendments up for grabs here that could change the bill. It could add things to the bill, could subtract things from the bill, and it will go through a vote-a-rama process here as well. So let me know your thoughts here in the comments. Make sure to subscribe down below to our YouTube channel. It's completely free to do so. New videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can click here to see my newest video next, and you can click here to see 20 different states that are sending out cash payments to their residents, tens of millions of people. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.